Hello there.
Raiding your back catalogue for new releases has been a thing long before video games. With the barrage of new Star Wars seemingly on an open tap, it should have been expected we would get just that for the Nintendo Switch. Star Wars being a franchise well accustomed to updates, re-releases, remasters and ports. But the question is, which one is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2? Knights of the Old Republic 2, or KOTR 2, was a cracking RPG extension of the Star Wars universe that came out right in the middle of the prequel's release buzz. A stacked dual development from Lucasfilm's timeline requirements to cash in on that, BioWare tackled the award-winning first entry and Obsidian took the second release. Both used the Odyssey engine, an evolution of BioWare's own Neverwinter Nights engine, and at the time it was an Xbox and PC exclusive. It offered some technical treats with dynamic and shadow casting light sources in abundance, particle systems, real-time cinematics, improved combat using the D2O system, and Lucasfilm's iMuse sound system. And it also got them onto consoles for the very first time, bringing all this technology onto the OG Xbox. The sequel was only a year later, and infamously rushed development had to cut content and arrived with a fair share of bugs, all of which should be resolved in this 18-year later release, right?
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror.
Well, let's cover the basics first. The new Switch port hits a native 1920 by 1080p resolution, with the aspect ratio now also amended to fit comfortably in that 16 by 9 Switch screen, which is limited to 1280 by 720. But it's still an old title with very singular textured assets, no modern post AA. It is always clean and sharp. A big step up from the OG Xbox resolution, but not so from that original PC release. Now, in addition, it also targets 60 FPS rather than 30 or 25 FPS here in PAL land of that console version, but more on that in a minute. Finally, the textures are improved at a higher resolution with some heavy sharpening applied and look to be of an AI upscale variety, which always delivers mixed results. However, we have to keep in mind that this is a game targeting those that have never likely played the original or no longer own the console or PC to play it. Shh, you at the back there with the original Xbox or Xbox consoles, ignore what I'm saying now. And for that, it does improve in the core areas, and it offers a great way to enjoy this well-written, deep and engaging story, with some great characters as the entire tale unfolds. Much of the enjoyment here, though, is from the original game's design and execution, along with any nostalgia you may have for it. With the publisher Aspyr only announcing this port around a month ago, I would say this was obviously a very fast and technically driven port, which is evident in the game results here in this review code. The missing content DLC is free and will be released later this year on the store for download, so at least that is one of the issues that they will fix here, but it's sadly not the only one to cover. The game has its fair share of bugs, which the original had itself, but some may be resolved, but they're not fully resolved, and in many ways they're actually worse. For example, sound issues keep causing dropouts in the real-time cinematics, so it's almost like the iMuse system is trying to dynamically allocate the animation because of the faster frame rate, and therefore it can cut out some of the dialogue, but it doesn't always happen, so it definitely looks like a technical issue with the emulation that's being run here. If it is a native port on Switch, then it's all around how that port's been managed.
I am Kreia, and I am your rescuer, as you are mine. Tell me, do you recall what happened? Your ship was attacked. You were the only survivor, a result of your Jedi training, no doubt. Your stance, your walk tells me you are a Jedi. Your walk is heavy. You carry something that weighs you down.
It can get worse than this though, with cutscenes auto-skipping, meaning you miss all dialogue and huge portions of key story moments and even required knowledge to progress. All of this gets lost. It can actually skip huge parts of the animation sequences, ruining cutscenes and key moments as you see here. And it baffles me that this got through a release Q&A because it certainly isn't ready for release at this point.
Teachings that weaken us. And now you run in search of the Jedi. They are all dead, save one, and one broken Jedi cannot stop the darkness that is to come.
Perhaps we shall see.
The problem is that makes the entire experience incredibly inconsistent and far worse than the original Xbox release, which is entirely unacceptable, let's be honest. But it's not just that, which is almost borderline game breaking at this point. Visual reductions such as static textures now over the animated ones we had on the OG Xbox, reduced effects as you see here in the particle effects, which is likely a Switch performance saving here because it's significantly cut back, and then overall the AI sharpened textures are hit and miss and can look very bad and okay at other points. These issues continue with the video files being interlaced still and then AI upscaled on top of that, which makes them look horrendous on an LCD screen. Here you can see my Xbox being simply interpolated. A deinterlace scaler looks much better already, and this is the original Xbox. On top of this, you get comical animation moments, such as you see here with this Swan Lake or Monty Python-like run along the outside area in your spacesuit. Again, it never looked that great on the 30 FPS original, but now running at 60 FPS, that animation is just speeded up, looking comedic at best. And generally, the overall biggest issue is terrible performance due to a 60 FPS target frame rate. This is clearly not the right way to go. Adding in a menu option to enable 30 FPS could drastically improve this, and I do recommend a menu option rather than just turning it off, because if they do manage to improve some of the areas where there's significant performance hiccups, then that 60 FPS mode might make more sense. As it stands, if you did implement a 30 FPS cap, there's always the risk that if the game is memory bound here with limited memory space, which I suggest it possibly is if it's using emulation, then this may also then cause frame pacing issues to occur when it can no longer flip as easily to 16 and then 33 milliseconds. As a series and universe I love, it pains me to say that this is not a title I can recommend on Switch at present, not in its current state at least. It can, and I'm sure it will improve, but it needs to be, as the experience in so many ways is worse than that 18-year-old original. Visually and performance-wise, it plays and looks worse or very close to that free BC version available on Xbox if you buy the cheaper OG Xbox disc, and that's on the Xbox One, which can play this game at 1280 by 960, although that is 30 FPS, blessing and a curse, but it doesn't contain the DLC, which this $15 release is certainly worth that for. But generally the level of TLC it deserves has not been applied here, with some serious bugs that only ruin the story, a key element in these titles, but also make a first playthrough close to impossible. Visual issues and omissions aside, the performance levels generally are not as consistent as they should be, and at times worse than that OG Xbox, and they need to be fixed. It is not expensive, and with the collection of bugs resolved, it would be more than worth it for the DLC alone. But I would be singing a very different tune if all of these issues weren't here. As it stands, this is a wait and see approach due to the negative impact and all the myriad of bugs present this version has, and it would come behind the BC version on an Xbox console and that PC original. Hell, even the OG Xbox is better in so many ways. The Force was certainly against them on this one. I hope you enjoyed this dive back into the Force, Star Wars and all things game and technical related, and if you do, remember to keep it IGN for much more content like this, and we'll be back very soon for much more. I'll catch you on the next one.